All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started, Mark. Is that all right?
Yep, you bet.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. You may be watching this live, or you may be watching this recorded, as it will be on our Facebook and YouTube page. But thanks for joining us today for this Ask a Curator event, this worldwide hashtag holiday where the public gets the opportunity to ask museum, archives, nature center, all other similar institutions and their employees questions, whatever they choose. And today we're here. My name is Pat Kane with the Museum of the Grand Prairie, and joined by our curator, Mark Hanson, to field some questions. So with that, if you have any questions today, this is meant to be a live Q&A session. Ask those questions down in the comment section, and we would be happy to answer those. Any and all questions, questions about the museum, questions about how the job works, questions on historical topics, our thoughts on the meanings of life, really anything. Ask those questions, because it makes this program a lot more engaging for you and for us. It makes it a lot of fun. So ask those questions, and then also down in the comment section, let us know where you're watching from. We're streaming live from Champaign County here in Central Illinois, but we would love to know where you are watching from today. So write that down in the comment section below. If you don't know much about the Museum of the Grand Prairie, since 1968, we originally opened as the Early American Museum, and our current mission is to collect, preserve, and interpret the cultural and natural history of Champaign County in East Central Illinois. We're also part of the Champaign County Forest Preserve District, a collection of 6 forest preserves, educational facilities, golf course, much more right here in Champaign County. So get out and visit those forest preserves, enjoy the outdoors, especially on a beautiful day such as today here in Central Illinois. Before we get started, I did want to promote a few things ongoing and some upcoming virtual events. So the museum is now open on a limited basis. We opened in early July, and our current hours, we're open Tuesdays through Saturdays, 1 to 5 p.m. But visitors must pre-register before visiting. Reserve your time slot by visiting our Facebook or website to register to visit the museum. And of course, we require all visitors to wear a mask and follow other safety protocols while visiting. Check out all the great digital content we put out over the past several months on our social media pages. Things such as stories of local history, pieces from our collection, virtual summer camp videos, virtual events and concerts, and much more. So find that content on our Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Goodreads pages. All that great digital content. This week is Welcoming Week. And we are celebrating Welcoming Week here at the Museum of the Grand Prairie, Champaign County Forest Preserve District, with some awesome virtual things that you can check out. Along with our colleagues over at the Homer Lake Interpretive Center, we're welcoming visitors, all visitors, to join us on a virtual visual journey to the museum and other awesome pieces of the Champaign County Forest Preserve District. We've already published some videos in English and Spanish on our Facebook page. Here in the near future, this week, we will premiere a video in French welcoming those to the museum in the Champaign County Forest Preserve District in 3 languages. So check those videos out on our Facebook and YouTube pages. One last thing to promote, tomorrow we have another virtual concert streaming live from the Museum of the Grand Prairie from our special exhibit, How Long Must Women Wait? Women's Suffrage and Women's Rights in Champaign County. Our Soloists for Suffrage concert series featuring some awesome local female artists performing live from that exhibit space. And tomorrow night from 7 to 8:30 p.m., Rebecca Rigo will join us and perform an intimate set from that exhibit space. And much like this program, the Soloists for Suffrage virtual concert tomorrow night with Rebecca Rigo will be streamed live on our Facebook and YouTube pages. Okay, so as I already mentioned, ask us your questions. We would love for you to ask us questions. I have some questions prepared too, but ask us your questions down in the comment section if you have any questions for Mark Hanson, our curator. Also, let us know where you're watching from today down below. Make this as much fun for everyone involved, us and you out there, by asking those questions and putting those comments in the section. Okay, So with that, it's Ask a Curator Day, and we're joined here by Mark Hanson. So let's kick it off with Mark. Mark, I'm going to ask you the first question here. Who is Mark Hanson?
Well, the easy answer to that is that I am the curator for the Museum of the Grand Prairie, which basically means that my responsibilities lie with taking care of the collections and developing and caring for exhibits that you find in the museum.
Cool. So Mark Hanson, our curator. Thanks to Mark for joining us this morning for this program. So curator is a fancy word. Maybe you know what it means. Maybe you don't know what it means out there. But Mark, could you tell us what do you do as museum curator?
Sure. Well, that term can have some different museums. Curators can do some different things. My position, I'm a little bit more of a general practitioner. So I take care of all the collections. Larger museums might have a specific curator for a specific part of their collection. Obviously, we're smaller, mid-sized museum, so I'm sort of responsible for all the collections. And I also do exhibits. I'm not just the collections guy. I'm also responsible for developing exhibits, working on the interpretation in those exhibits, selecting artifacts. I do have one staff member in the collections office, and that's Jen Grove, our registrar. So we work together to basically do anything that's required for collections and exhibits. Loans, new donations, artifacts for exhibits, care of artifacts, storage, tracking, cataloging. Yeah, you pretty much name you name it. Kind of falls in my sandbox, as it were.
A lot going on behind the scenes. Very busy guy at the museum. I know. Mark, got one question from a familiar face. Katie, what's the most unusual, exciting, or surprising artifact you've run across in the museum's collections?
Oh, wow. Oof. That's hard. That's sort of like picking your favorite child. The museum has fantastic artifacts. I come from a background of industrial artifacts, so larger things. So one of the artifacts that I fell in love with pretty quickly was a horse-drawn corn cultivator. I think that's probably one of my, I guess that would be favorite, exciting. Boy, surprising. I've been doing this long enough, so I don't really get surprised anymore. You would be amazed. I think most people would be amazed at what sort of things the collections contain. A collection that we just worked on not too long ago was a collection of decorative hair combs. Sounds mundane enough, but a lot of these hair combs are made of a plastic, cellulose nitrate, those types of things, and they are incredibly unstable. So you almost watch them break down. And depending on the composition of those cellulose-based plastics, some of them can actually catch on fire. So that's kind of a weird thing that we work with. Most museum collections probably have radioactive material in them. Yeah, so I guess maybe those are things that maybe aren't so surprising to me anymore, but might be a little surprising to our our viewers.
Do we have anything radioactive that you can think of specifically?
Yeah, we sure do. We have a it's a portable rocket launcher from the Vietnam era that has radioluminescent paint on the sighting mechanism. I'm sure we have some glassware that, now we're talking low level. I mean, nobody's going to glow. I mean, this isn't, this isn't a danger issue, but yeah, so that's one. I'm sure we have some glassware. Depending on we also have a compass that has radioluminescent paint on the compass dial. So yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks for the question, Katie. Those of you watching out there, keep those questions coming. Let's see here. We already asked that question. What do you do as museum curator? What about this one? If someone is interested in becoming a museum curator, what type of schooling or experience do they need? And if you're comfortable sharing, what sort of schooling and experience do you have?
Right. Well, I guess I'm a bit of a rebel. I think experience is equally, if not more important than schooling. For the simple reason that the museum world has so many different types of museums, large, small, collections vary, missions vary, that that experience in the field, I think, is really, really important. There are excellent museum studies programs. University of Illinois has a minor, and other schools around the country have good programs to help. But you just can't beat that experience. The book learning is great, and it establishes a good foundation, but you have to be able to sort of get that into practice. And I think that experience is how we sort of meld the real world with sort of the academic, and use both to their full potential. My schooling is varied, I guess. I studied as an undergrad geology, history, and anthropology, and later went on to get my master's degree in anthropology with an emphasis in archaeology. I'm a material guy. I'm a material culture guy. To me, artifacts are the bee's knees, and so that's where I sort of that's where my education sort of led me to this object collections based career field in the museum.
Mark, you said experience is big to you. Is there any particular experience that you've had, like specific experience at a particular facility, or when you were first getting started, or maybe after you started your career? Is there any particular experience where you felt formed, it formed you, taught you a whole bunch about the career?
Yeah, I think when I started in the museum field, I was an undergrad in college, and I started volunteering at the local history museum. And I'd always sort of been interested in history and sort of material culture, but I think that first delve into the field as a volunteer working with collections, I was doing cataloging, artifact care, doing some research. It just sort of clicked. I mean, these artifacts are, they're representative of people's lives and people's experiences, and depending on the item, those people are gone. We can't talk to them anymore. We can't interact with them anymore. But these artifacts are sort of the sentinels of that, those human experiences. And that's a really powerful thing when you're holding something that, in the archaeological world could be several hundred years old. and consider, who made it, how did they use it, in an archaeological setting, how did it come to be where we found it? Sometimes even in a museum setting, the artifacts that we have that represent people's lives in and of themselves, it would be very easy to overlook the object as just another pocket watch, or just another, whatever it is. But it's what they represent that's so powerful. And these objects are basically the only physical contact that sort of connects us back to these experiences. And I think we can learn a lot from that.
Yeah, each artifact has a great story, that's for sure. Okay, well, thanks, Mark, for that answer. I've got a question from a good friend out there, fellow Rantulian, Jeff Reel. How do you seek / collect new artifacts for the museum?
Yeah, so we're what we would call a passive collecting organization. So we don't go out hunting up collections. We don't go out and try and buy collections. Our collecting is basically powered by the community. Folks who have an awareness of things that they might own or might be in their family, and they reach out to us and ask us if we're interested. And we start a conversation, and if they have something that sort of fits with our mission and that we can ethically add to our collection and care for properly and use, we do that. But we're passive about it. We don't ever we don't ever want to appear sort of out in the community being predatory, trying to take people's history. No, that's definitely not what we want to do. We want to preserve that history. And the first step in that is having folks want that history preserved and coming to us so that we can start a conversation, and perhaps add something to our collection. The other huge contributing factor that we always have to be thinking about is when we take artifacts into the permanent collection. Now, we do have some other subsets. We do have an education collection, for example, that educators and public programmers can use that is different. That's meant to be used if something gets damaged or lost. The value is in the use, allowing people to sort of experience these things. But our permanent collection is different. That's a preservation collection. We want to make sure that these artifacts are taken care of basically in perpetuity. Our goal is forever. That's what we're striving for. So we always have to be mindful of, can we care for something properly? Is the object in a condition that's salvageable? I mean, can we even preserve it at all? And we also want to make sure that we're collecting quality artifacts. We don't have limited space. We don't have limited financial resources or staff resources. So we really focus on quality artifacts. Folks who call me with an artifact, probably one of the first questions I'll ask them is what can you tell me about the artifact? What's its story? Is it a family heirloom? Did you find it in Grandpa's barn? Because like I said earlier, that history is really what separates out just another piece of material culture from something that is significant that we want to spend our resources to preserve, basically in perpetuity, and be able to share with the public, an exhibit or some of the online collections posts that we've been doing. So hope that answered the question. There's a lot more to it than, going to an antique store and picking up some stuff, or, just willy-nilly taking anything that's offered. We really, really try and do a good job with quality over quantity, and hopefully building some trust and a relationship with those donors so they feel comfortable after having talked to us, giving us these things that they're offering.
Yeah. So I mean, like you said, there's a lot more than people, I think, really realize that goes into it. And I know you and Jen, fellow staff member working in the collections department, work really hard on all of that. And I always look forward to looking in the board report, or maybe checking out the collections workroom to see what's new and what rolled in. Also, Jeff said thank you. Sounds like you answered his question. Thanks to Jeff too for asking that question. Shout out to Jeff, good friend.
Yeah, and that's a good point too that I didn't mention. We have a process for accepting artifacts. So I'm sort of the tip of the spear. Someone contacts me. We have a conversation. Jen and I will talk about it. Barb, our director, might talk about it if it's something that has some specific issues that we might need to face. But we also have a museum advisory committee, which we recommend, hey, we would like to get this artifact. We take that to our museum advisory committee. We have a discussion. They either approve or disapprove our request. If they approve it, then it goes to the Champaign County Forest Preserve Board of Commissioners. They take a look at it, and then they have the final say whether we officially accept an object into our collection or not. So it's a multi-tiered process, which again is designed to make sure that we're focusing on quality over quantity and staying true to our mission and our ability to professionally care for artifacts that we do take in.
All right. Well, thanks, Mark, for that answer. Keep those questions coming. We've got just a few minutes here. One more question from the public. Familiar face, Marina. How do you document current events?
Yeah. So as a history museum, we've really had to do a little bit more of that, especially now with COVID and some of the civil unrest that's going on. History is not something that's happening yesterday. It's happening today. We are obviously in at a turning point for this country. So it behooves us to begin documenting and collecting some of these things. So early in the pandemic, we had a discussion about how could we start documenting these experiences with the restrictions that we had. The museum was closed, staff were not in the building. So we focused on digital media. So photographs, videos, to start amassing a collection to document these times. Same with some of the civil unrest that we've been seeing. That's where we started digital media. Very powerful. Digital media is pretty powerful. Imagery, video, and from a collection standpoint, it's relatively easy for us to manage. And now that we are back open at a limited degree, we are actually beginning to collect some three-dimensional objects from these things. Obviously, masks. Got a list, and I'm drawing a blank right now. protest signs, and so we're slowly beginning to collect these experiences we're in. But we're also sensitive. We don't want to be collecting, for example, we want people wearing their mask. So we don't want them, donating a mask that they need to be using. That's probably an over exaggeration for an example, but we're trying to be sensitive about that. Again, we don't want to be predatory, but we do want to do due diligence to be documenting and collecting these really important historic events that we are living through.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it's a big moment in history. We're in the midst of a moment of multiple pandemics facing the country, facing the world, and the Museum of the Grand Prairie, is documenting these current moments. So
absolutely.
Yeah, thanks for that question, Marina. Time for one more question, if that's okay with you, Mark.
Sure.
We'll end up here. Question I had. So other than your museum, other than the Museum of the Grand Prairie, what is Mark Hanson's favorite other museum to explore?
That's easy. National Museum of the United States Air Force in Dayton, Ohio. Yep, that is my all-time favorite. Yep.
Why is that, Mark?
I'm just an aviation guy. For whatever reason, that's just been a fascinating topic for me. And yeah, the Air Force Museum, I think, does a fantastic job of interpreting aviation, and they have some of the coolest artifacts you can imagine. Again, I sort of come from an industrial, big artifact background, and obviously, they've got some huge artifacts which are really cool to see, as well as just a lot of other things. And they just do it in their interpretation, their presentation is just really well done across the board. It's a great place to visit. Yeah, that would be it for me, for sure.
And some of you out there may be watching. Mark, before you came to the museum, you worked at another local museum that you want to tell folks a little bit more about? Mark?
Yeah, so I was the curator for the Chanute Air Museum for about 8 years, 9 years, something like that. And of course, due to some unfortunate circumstances, that museum is no longer with us. So, yeah.
I did love to explore that. I grew up in Rantoul, and Chanute Air Force Base, huge piece of Rantoul's history, monumental piece of Rantoul's history, and loved going out to that air museum growing up with my family, and it was a great place to go, and love seeing all the airplanes. So going to the Air Force Museum in Ohio, that would be a cool experience. I've never been there, but
it's worth it. It's worth a trip.
Oh,
yep, absolutely.
Yep. All right. Well, looks like we're about out of time here. Scheduled to go till 10:30, going a few minutes over. But really appreciate Mark, for taking time out of your morning to join us for this Ask a Curator Day, this live question and answer session. Thanks to you out there for watching. Thanks to those of you who ask questions, help make this an engaging program. And if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to us. If you got any more questions, curiosities about the Museum of the Grand Prairie, museum world in general, reach out to us via our Facebook page, give us a call, email us. That contact information can be found on our website or social media pages too. But thanks again, and until next time, we will see you again.